Dude, I swear, YouTube has easily the shittiest streaming system. Frustrating to me. What else is in here? Is that everything? Hello, everybody! Hello, 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 hello. How are you all doing? This is gonna be a pretty chill stream. But I was working on a video, which is gonna still come out. I was working on a video that will come out tomorrow about like a lot of what was revealed with this update for Warhammer the Old World, and because there is so much that they're kind of showing their hand here. So we're going to talk about all that, and I'll go really in depth into it tomorrow morning in a video. But I figured I should probably put out something today just to chat about it. Unfortunately, I ordered my dinner an hour ago, and I had hoped that it would be here a little over an hour ago. And I was hoping it would be here like in 30... ready in 30 minutes, and it took it a lot longer to be ready. So I literally just got back to the house. Lot to discuss. And I'm going to be eating while discussing it. So, we'll kind of play it by ear. How are y'all? How is everybody? Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Firehouse up? No, I got Chili's tonight. I couldn't decide what I wanted.
Another wretched foul lizard thing joins the red host. Cursed Sotek spawn.
Papa, thanks for the gift sub, my dude. So, let's talk about... Where is it? This. Alright.
Another wretched foul lizard thing joins the red host. Cursed Sotek spawn.
Hey, Undertaker. Got a wrap and sandwich from Subway. Learned that the beef stuff from Subway ain't my style. I can't, at least to my brain, the idea of beef from Subway definitely does not sound super appealing. Alright, so for those unaware, we got another update to the map for Warhammer the Old World, focusing around Bretonnia. It's not purely Bretonnia, there's some other stuff that they revealed, but this reveal gives us enough information that I feel pretty confident I can pinpoint when this new setting is going to take place. So, from what I can tell, and the various little hints they've scattered around for us, Warhammer the Old World is going to take place, it's going to start just a tiny bit before the Great War Against Chaos. So they're going to be starting the setting somewhere in the ballpark of, if I had to guess, they're probably going to start it a couple of decades before the 2300s. And here's the big things they did today that gives us a lot of information to work with. The most important thing is this right here. This image is the most important thing we've ever seen leading into this, because we got confirmation of who's in charge of Bretonnia. So we're dealing with King Lewin Orcslayer. King Lewin Orcslayer is the king of Bretonnia. He was made king in 2201. Now, that being said, that's not when the setting is going to start. We just know that that's the furthest back it could possibly go is 2201. Based on other evidence that's available in this image, I highly suspect we are starting way past that point. We're probably going to start in like the 2270s or maybe the 2250s, leading towards the Great War Against Chaos in 2301. So let's talk about what's going on and how I came to that conclusion. There's a couple of really big things. And then we'll kind of talk about what all that means across the world. I thought they said it was during the time of the Three Emperors. Technically, this is during the time of the Three Emperors, but it's at the very, very end. But Games Workshop never officially said that. That was just fan speculation that was not super strong. So this is what we have so far of the entire world. We've got some high elf enclaves, we've got wood elves and a wood elf enclave in the forest of Arden, which we'll come back to in a minute. We've got greenskins all over the goddamn place in Crone. We've got King Lewin Orcslayer and the kingdoms of Bretonnia. And then the Empire is divided up between 4 factions, though they have a lot more borders than just 4. Suggesting that there may be more factions who aren't directly related to the Empire. And then of course they've got some Norscan tribes listed up here, and we know that Kislev is going to play a major role in the new setting. So basically what we're looking at is that Warhammer the Old World is almost entirely going to focus, in my opinion, on the Great War Against Chaos. The Great War Against Chaos, for those unaware, the Great War Against Chaos is when Azavar Kul gathered up the hordes of chaos over about 30 years, and then he invaded Kislev, or he invaded the Old World, and he invades from the Chaos Waste into Kislev, where they have the epic battle, the Siege of Prague. Prague is destroyed, and then they go south to the capital, the city of Kislev itself, and the city of Kislev has the really big final battle between the forces of order and the forces of chaos. And Azavar Kul is defeated by the forces of Magnus the Pious, and that's the end of kind of that age. So it looks like that's what we're going to be able to get to play through, is we're going to be playing as all of these great heroes during the Great War Against Chaos, which is awesome, frankly, because here's the thing. Despite the fact that the Great War Against Chaos is easily the most important war prior to, like, the modern age, Games Workshop never really covered it that much. Like, it was fundamental in shaping the world the way it currently is, but Games Workshop didn't release any novels about it. We didn't have any, like, major roles around it. Like, it was pretty mysterious. Like, there's no artwork of Azavar Kul. We don't know a lot about Magnus the Pious. Like, it's very mysterious. So I think it actually does really well for a fantasy setting that every single faction in Warhammer Fantasy is involved in some way. So it's a good setting to pick. So let's talk about who all is active during this time, because I see a lot of questions in chat about everyone like, oh, what's going on? So let me hold up. let me just kind of go down the list and give a very brief description of what's going on. Okay, so at this time point, the Empire is still divided. King Lewin Orcslayer is in charge. So let's do a recap of roughly why I also think we're later in the years. Is that you see this little enclave of Wood Elves right here? This little enclave of Wood Elves is super important, because this is showing us that the Wood Elves own or control the Forest of Arden, or at least a significant portion of it, right? So the Forest of Arden was one of the most dangerous, deadly, corrupted forests during the timeline of the 2200s. Because Morgr the Corruptor had, like, annihilated it. And the Wood Elves in the 2240s, I believe, Morgr is reborn in the Forest of Arden, and they know he's there. So they launch an invasion of the Forest of Arden, led by Erloth the Bold, who's the special character from 8th edition, Nyeth the Prophetess, and a couple of other special characters. They go to the Forest of Arden, and they lose. They try to kill Morgr while he's still young, and the Beastmen just outnumber them. The Beastmen figure out what's up before the Wood Elves have their chance, and they get torn to pieces. Only a handful of people, not a lot of people, escape. However, many years later, well, like 12 years later, no, 20 years later, in the, hold on, I have to like block off my screen so y'all don't see a few things, but because I actually wrote down the dates. Let's see. Well, no, y'all can see this. That's fine. Y'all can see I'm working on a script right now for tomorrow's video. So we're dealing with, okay, so 2246. So in 2246, the Wood Elves successfully take back, or well, take the Forest of Arden. So the Forest of Arden, Morgr is found there again, and Morgr, of course, being the scariest beastman that exists and the ultimate enemy of the Wood Elves. In 2246, the Wood Elves under Erloth lead another invasion of Arden, but this time they succeed. So Morgr is killed, and the Forest of Arden is purified. So the Forest of Arden is healed and purified thanks to Erloth using the sap of the Oak of Ages. And the Forest of Arden is reclaimed by the Forces of Order, aka the Wood Elves. So if there is a Wood Elf enclave in the Forest of Arden, assuming Games Workshop is actually giving a shit about the lore, which is a bit of an assumption. That is an assumption. Assuming they care about the lore they wrote in 8th edition, this means that with the Wood Elves owning the Forest of Arden, this has to take place after 2246. So, after 2246, there's less than 30 years before Azavar Kul begins gathering his forces in preparation for the invasion of the Old World in 2271. So 2271 is when Azavar Kul goes on his quest to become Everchosen, and he gathers to him, you know, the 4 powers of chaos, demons, and all that stuff, and prepares for his invasion. So I suspect that the setting, I'm guessing we're probably going to start in 2270. That's my ballpark, I think. Because that's enough time before the the final battle in 2302, which is the final battle. Doesn't Warhammer Chaosbane exist in this timeline? Sort of. Chaosbane is after the Great War of Chaos. It's after all that shit. So what we're dealing with here, I think, is the build-up to the Great War of Chaos, and then we're going to get to play through the Great War of Chaos, which only lasted for about 2 years. Or, well, the final battle of it lasted for 2 years. And the damn dog opened the door, excuse me. Sorry, my family's downstairs watching football, and I don't want to bother them by yelling. So, that's our ballpark. Was the Great War Against Chaos such a short war? It wasn't super short, but you have to remember, whenever you're dealing with massive hordes of chaos, they are held together by the Everchosen. And the Everchosen, Asvar Kul, he dies in 2302 at the Battle of the Gates of Kislev. So, here we have the 4 factions that are left in the old world, or in the Empire. The Time of the Three Emperors. These are the claimants that are still around. You have Marienburg, Midland, what seems to be like Talabecland, even though it's a little too far east. And actually, no, that's about right. Yeah, no, that's fine. Talabecland and then Reichland. So, what's going on right now is that a couple of interesting things have happened in the ballpark. Drachenfels, of course, the castle of Drachenfels, which is right around here in the Grey Mountains. Drachenfels did unleash a horde of demons into Reichland, which razed 2 cities to the ground, including Ubersreich, which is the game that Vermintide 1 takes place in. But Ubersreich gets burned down a lot of times. It's a very unfortunate city. But I don't think that's going to play into this. I think this is going to take place good ways after that. Because like I said, King Lewin Orcslayer took the throne at 2201, but he did a lot of shit over his life. So now let's talk about what every faction is up to, right? I'm sure, okay. Let's do this. I think chat is more interested in knowing what characters are around first. Then we'll talk about what all the factions are up to, okay? So let's just kind of talk about Warhammer Fantasy characters from, like, Total War, so 8th edition, and who's still around. I'm trying to eat and talk. Damn, that's some good soup. Alright, so when it comes to the Empire, nobody you know is still alive, or has been born yet, right? The important characters in the Empire, though, that you have to look forward to. So the important characters you can look forward to for the Empire are Magnus the Pious. So Magnus the Pious, who was the emperor that reunited the Empire and defeated Asvar Kul's, or led to defeat Asvar Kul's armies, will be around. But another important character for the Empire is Volans. Volans was the first Supreme Patriarch, and he was also the founder of the College of Light. So Volans is a insanely powerful wizard. Volans was so strong that, like, Volans was probably the strongest normal human wizard ever. That, like, wasn't into necromancy or whatever. Like, he was a big dick deal. So those are kind of the 2 big boys you're looking at with the Empire. There are, of course, some major factions around. You're gonna have some kind of R. Ulrich, even though I believe the R. Ulrich of this time period ends up dying to Asvar Kul because he runs off to go fight him a little too early. But there's probably going to be an R. Ulrich. There's probably going to be a Grand Theogenist. So next, let's talk about the vampire counts. At this time period, the vampire wars are over. They've been over for like 100 years. So with the vampire counts, Vlad von Karstein is dead, Conrad von Karstein is dead, and Manfred is supposedly dead. Of course, in later editions, it was retcon that Manfred did not actually die at Helfin. He's, like, hiding. So during this time period, Manfred von Karstein is still around, but the vampire wars are over. So if Manfred is around, if this setting is supposed to be canonical to, like, the old stuff, then Manfred cannot be obvious in his attacks. There are, of course, some, like, big dick vampires that are still around and could be problematic, but the von Karsteins cannot invade the Empire in like a big, meaningful way, and it still be canonical. Because we're past the Vampire Wars. So you're probably not going to see Vlad. I would just say you're not going to see Vlad. You're not going to see Conrad. We will probably see Manfred. We will probably see Neferata. Dieter Hellschnitt? I'm not sure when Dieter Hellschnitt, the Doom Lord, became active. Let me see. Let me pull up something.
Another wretched foul lizard thing joins the Red Host. Cursed Sotek spawn.
Man, Dieter Hellschnitt's an old character. Hot damn, 4th edition. Trying to get a timeline on him. Yes, Dieter Hellschnitt is around. Yep. Because he was during the time. Anything that happened during the time of the Three Emperors is maybe still around. Yeah, Dieter Hellschnitt is still around. So Dieter Hellschnitt the Doom Lord of Middenland might very well be a major player. Ward the Beard? Oh, dude, that was ages ago. How far back is this timeline? 300 years. So this is ballpark 200 to 300 years before the modern timeline. So for the undead, we're looking at Dieter Hellschnitt, Neferata, Manfred. Where I get the information about this time period? Army books. Gorbad Ironclaw's already happened. Gothor the Beast Lord was 600 years before this. Gorbad Ironclaw was like many hundreds of years before this. Yeah, so we're probably looking at 2250-ish years after Sigmar founded the Empire. Rapunzel is dead by this point. Either that or she's like 200 years old. Who's Neferata? The first vampire. Is this before the Lady of the Lake? No. If Bretonnia exists, the Lady of the Lake's already happened. So, greenskins. A lot of people are asking about greenskins. There are no greenskin characters that y'all will be familiar with who will be alive in this time period. Grimgor is not around yet. Skarsnik's not around yet. Azhag's not around yet. None of them are. The only character from the greenskins that could show up is Grom the Paunch. But Grom the Paunch doesn't show up for another couple hundred years. Have the Crusades happened yet? Yes, this is after the Crusades. This is hundreds of years after the Crusades. Grimgor probably is not even alive yet. Gorfang? Nope, no Gorfang. Conrad's dead. Conrad von Karstein, Vlad von Karstein, Isabella von Karstein, they're all dead. Do Black Orcs exist? Yeah, Black Orcs exist. What's the technical difference in warfare? That's an interesting question. So, one of the things that's really interesting about turning back the clock this far, about 300 years, is that a substantial amount of technologies don't exist yet. Particularly when it comes to the likes of the Empire, and the Ogre Kingdoms, and the Dwarves. And the Skaven, actually. I haven't done a full checklist yet, but I do know that the Ogres have not started using black powder by this point. So, like, the Ogre Kingdoms, although the Ogre Kingdoms were actually, like, active they had not invented lead belchers or iron blasters yet by this point. When it comes to dwarves, most of the dwarf characters will be alive by this point. The current king is probably going to be High King Alricson. High King Alricson is a character who... High King Alricson was the High King who went to the defense of Kislev, where he was mortally wounded. And after he dies, High King Thorgrim Grudgebearer takes over. So, Ungrim will definitely be around. Belagar's definitely somewhere around. A lot of those greens... what about Gotrek? Gotrek's not alive yet. Gotrek was not alive during the Great War. Is this before Shadow of the Horned Rat? I'm not 100% sure when Shadow of the Horned Rat takes place. Which elves are alive? All of them. All the elves you're familiar with are alive. All of the Wood Elf characters are around. Tyrion and Teclis are around and are like a big dick deal. Teclis has not yet come to the Empire. So like in the Empire, the colleges of magic have not been founded. None of the colleges have been founded. So there's no College of Magic. There's no College of Engineering. There's no College of Gunnery School. None of those exist yet. Yeah, Belagar is quite young. All of them are quite young at this point. Who controls Eight Peaks? Nobody interesting. I think Eight Peaks at this point in the timeline is under the control of the Skaven. Are crossbows a thing? Yes. Well, like, the Empire has gunpowder by this point. Who is the Everchosen? The Everchosen that this will be building up to is Azavar Kul. Is Clan Eshin back? Yes. The Skaven are going to be pretty recognizable.
You bring token trinket to give to Throt. Yes, yes. Good, good. I accept your offering for Mulder Clan.
What about Estalia? Estalia at this point is probably still recovering from the Crusades. So is this essentially a reboot, or are they going to follow the old lore? We have no idea. We don't know how much reverence that... we don't know how much reverence Games Workshop is going to be treating the old lore with. It could be that they're starting at this point, and then once they start, it's just going to be like, nobody knows what the fuck's going on. And it's just going to be wild. Or it could be that... like, they're going to follow the lore super duper hardcore so that all the stuff leading to AOS can still happen. We don't really know. When does Sigvald become the Scion of Slaanesh? I don't remember off the top of my head. I'll be doing a series of videos going over all of the characters. Right now, I'm just kind of focusing on, like, the broad stuff going on in the timeline, as opposed to, like, every single nitty-gritty character. I have not had enough time to check every single character. Shadow of the Horned Rat was fairly recent in the timeline. Okay, then yeah. Shadow of the Horned Rat does not take place for many hundreds of years. The Sundering, long time ago. What's the biggest rewrite I would want starting at this point in the lore? I would want the Ogre Kingdoms and the Lizardmen to be much more active on a global scale. What happens to the Lizardmen during the Great War? Not a lot. The Lizardmen have a couple of demon invasions around this ballpark, and the Slann help out with the Great War by using, like, magic from across the planet. But, yeah. Any of the Vampire Coast characters around? Let me see. Let me see here. When did the Vampire Coast happen? Yes, the Vampire Coast is well established at this point. The Vampire Coast is super well established at this point. Yeah, this is probably only going to be like 250 years before the modern timeline. So, like, when it comes to humans, they will be pretty different. But when it comes to, like, every other race, like, when it comes to the long-lived races, they're going to be pretty much the same. Does Sigvald have a mount? No, Sigvald would never allow a mount to touch him. He's way too arrogant for that. I'm not gonna let some filthy beast touch him. I think there's a very good chance you could see Vampire Coast pop up and do something interesting. What am I eating? French fries? Will there be gnomes? I have no idea. Can there be Cathay? There could. We have no idea what they're doing at this point. Is Luther Harkon still banana? Dude, Luther Harkon has been out of his... Luther Harkon has been insane for like 2,000 years. What's the summary? The summary is that Warhammer the Old... Okay, so here's the takeaway. If somebody asks in chat, this is what you tell them. The takeaway from tonight's stream is that Warhammer the Old World is going to take place... It's going to start right before the Great War Against Chaos. What are the Dark Elves doing? The Dark Elves are about to invade Ulthuan. There's going to be a big invasion of Ulthuan. This is the war that leads to the Battle of Finneval Plain. Albric, none of the Bretonnian characters are around, except for the Fey Enchantress. The Fey Enchantress is around. Is this after the War of Sand and Snow? The War of Sand and Snow takes place during this timeline, depending on where they start it. Where's Krell? Probably in his tomb. What are the ogres doing? The ogres are kind of minding their own business until the Great War happens. And then when the Great War Against Chaos happens, the ogres join both sides. So some of the ogres get hired by the Empire and fight alongside them. Some of them choose to team up with Chaos. Is this a teaser for Warhammer 3? No, this is completely unrelated to Warhammer 3. This is the tabletop game. So Games Workshop is bringing back the Warhammer Fantasy setting. And today they revealed when it's going to be taking place. The Great Maw already happened? Yeah, Great Maw already happened a long time ago. What are the Tomb Kings up to? Cetra invades Norska during this timeline. So Cetra the Imperishable actually invades Norska in about a 10-year war called the War of Sand and Snow, where he fights from one end of the continent to the other and just kills a ton of people. What's Kemmler up to? If Kemmler's alive by this point, he's fairly young, and he's mostly just building up his power. Chaos Dwarves? Up to something. What about Azhag? Hasn't been born yet. Do I think Kanto the Unsworn will be a major character? No. Is Lord Mazdamundi having a good nap? Probably. Age of the Three... This is at the very, very end of the time of the Three Emperors. How strong are the Tomb Kings at their time? The Tomb Kings are incredibly strong at this time. They've been around. Is Ikit alive at this point? I think so. I want to say Ikit's around at this point. Where's my Skaven book? Oh, I left it up there. Come here, Skaven. reach. There we go. What are the Skaven up to at this point? I know the Skaven are about to invade Bretonnia because they unleashed the Red Pox. Oh wait, no, it's another Red Pox. This isn't the big Red Pox. This is the small Red Pox. Interesting. Let's see. What's happening at this timeline? Oh! Oh yeah, Ikit Claw is super active by this point. Ikit Claw's already built his exoskeleton by this point. So, at this point in the timeline, the Skaven are basically about to reunite. So, the Skaven summoned the Great Horned Rat into existence, or back into existence in 2302. So, Ikit Claw is alive and well. Crittolus, a lot of the Council of 13 is the same that y'all will be familiar with. Talea is about to get invaded big time. So there's a massive war about to happen in Talea because the Skaven are going to invade it. So if you're thinking, oh, what are the Skaven up to right now? For the most part, the Skaven are about to invade Talea because they summoned the Horned Rat, and the Horned Rat tells them to stop being dipshits and get their shit together. Because basically, the Skaven were caught up in a civil war. So when the setting starts, the Skaven are in the middle of a civil war. And when Asvar Kul's defeated at the Battle at the Gates of Kislev, when he's defeated, that's the same year that the Skavens summon the Great Horned Rat himself into Skaven Blight. And he tells them to... He puts down the 13-sided pillar and says, whoever touches this pillar and doesn't die is the Council of 13. Anyone else, so stop fighting, is basically what he says. And Talea is about to get invaded. How does Talea fare? Not well. They survive, but they don't have a good time. Couple other things that are worth noting about this setting. We know that Forge World is handling a lot of the production. Forge World has cleared out a massive amount of their warehouses, which is why they actually got rid of a ton of 40k stuff. And they also got rid of a ton of Warhammer Fantasy stuff. They're basically making space for all the new models. We don't know if they're going to sell them only on the Forge World website, like they do Horus Heresy, or if it's going to be Forge World is going to be doing all the hard lifting, but if it's going to be sold on the GW website. We don't know if the models are going to be plastic or resin. We don't know if the books are going to be released in a traditional format or if they're going to be released in a Horus Heresy format. We know that Forge World is a major line behind it, but we don't know we don't know what it's going to look like. Forge World has been reined in significantly by Games Workshop in the last year. As they used to have a lot more freedom to do things, and then they kind of started to get in trouble, so they got reined in pretty hard. Has Drakenfels died yet? Drakenfels has died many times. That being said, he has not had his famous encounter with Genevieve yet, no. If memory serves. And we also know they'll be on square bases, which honestly, as much as I have nostalgia for square bases, I'm kind of irritated they're doing fantasy on square bases because it means that I'll have to have two different armies to play AOS and fantasy, which is going to be kind of annoying. What's Durthu doing at this point? Being Durthu. Actually, at this point, Durthu is killing greenskins. Because Lewin the Orc Slayer ran around killing all the greenskins, and because of that, he scared all the orcs into Athel Loren. So they all ran into Athel Loren, which pissed off Durthu. I assume Thanquil's not around? No, I don't think Thanquil's around at this point. What's going on in Norska? They're getting obliterated by Cetra the Imperishable. What's going on in Sylvania? Sylvania is recovering from the Vampire Wars. Manfred von Karstein is around, but he's being secretive. You vehemently disagree with my take. What is it about my take you disagree with? Are the Lizardmen a thing? Yes, the Lizardmen are a thing. What's Archon the Black doing? Existing. There's no specifics what he's up to right now. I'm just starting with Warhammer Fantasy. Thanks for the tip. Where should I start reading? Is there a comprehensive timeline? The only experience I have is Total War Warhammer 2. Ooh, man. I'm gonna be honest. Going into the time we're about to go into, there...
You bring token trinket to give to Throt, yes, yes? Good, good. I accept your offering for Mulder Clan.
There is not really a good book to read about this timeline. I'm gonna be honest. I think one of the only books you could read would probably be maybe like the Tyrion and Teclis trilogy, because they're the final war against the Dark Elves, where they fight Malekith the first time. That takes place during this timeline, or in this ballpark, because the Dark Elves are about to launch a huge invasion of Ulthuan. What are the High Elves and Dark Elves doing at this time? They're fighting over Ulthuan. Has Eight Peaks fallen? Eight Peaks is a ruin at this point. Was Drakenfels alive in the end times? That depends on how you define alive. Drakenfels was active during the end times. He didn't have a body, though. He was kind of like he was basically like a giant invisible thing that had all these tendrils that allows him to take over people's bodies, whether they're alive or dead. Like, he could turn you into a puppet and, like, just use your body against your will. And he was super duper scary, but he was around in the end times. He was one of Nagash's Mortarks.
You bring token trinket to give to Throt, yes, yes? Good, good. I accept your offering for Mulder Clan.
And I think for the most part, guys, I think that's kind of be it. As much as I kind of want to just like keep going, clearly we're kind of in a point where I think we're just kind of talking in circles, where a lot of people are asking the same questions. So I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna stream for like another 14 minutes, so that we're kind of like at a nice hour, and just kind of answer questions I see popping up in the chat. And then we're gonna call it, and y'all can just tune into the videos that are gonna come out tomorrow, where we're just gonna start just going over every single nitty-gritty detail. Will the Lizardmen be in Albion at this point? No, the Albion crisis is fairly recent. So the Lizardmen at this point are just hanging out in Lustria, trying to do their own thing. They're dealing with a lot of demon invasions right now. Was Kadak Doom in the Chaos Waste? By this point, yes. Jaster, I don't want the old world to be AOS with a fantasy skin. Oh, you talking about the square bases? Don't get me wrong, like, I'm excited for square bases. It's just inconvenient from a pure money perspective. Like, I would be happy if I could just have one Lizardman army instead of two. But if I've got to make two, I'll make two. Whatever. Either that, or maybe I'll magnetize my Lizardmen so that I can magnetize them two different kinds of bases. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's just gonna be really expensive. How would I specifically dress if I were Skaven? What? Will we see rattlings and poison globadiers at this time? Yes. Most of the Skaven weaponry has already been invented by this point. The only things not around at this point, let's see. The Hellpit Abomination has not been invented yet. But most of the Skaven weaponry exists. So no Storm Fiends, no Hellpit Abominations. Everything else, like Doom Wheels, Giselles, Warp Fire Throwers, Poison Wind Globadiers, all that already exists. What about the dwarves? The dwarves right now are unified under High King Alricson. Is the end times the end of the world and everybody died? Yes, but this is not about the end times. This is many, many hundreds of years before the end times. What's the Albion Crisis? The Albion Crisis is when Albion, which is this island here, the mists that hide it collapsed, so a bunch of different armies invaded it, and the Lizardmen ended up... Is Kolek Suneater around? Yes. Kolek Suneater is around, and Kolek Suneater plays a huge role in the War Against Chaos. So there is a very good chance you will see a playable Kolek Suneater returning to tabletop. Hopefully with his own model. Did the Tomb Kings ever fight the Wood Elves? Not that I'm aware of. Is Thorgrim a Beardly at this point? Kind of, yeah. Essentially. Philip, no. I hope there's novels that come out of this. There better be novels that come out of this. What did Forge World do that needed reining in by Games Workshop? Rules. When Forge World was really busy releasing a lot of stuff for 40k, they ended up breaking the game on accident. Because they were too interested in the rule of cool and not interested in the rule of things actually need to be balanced and make sense. And they caused a lot of problems and got in trouble. Do we know who the current Slayer King is? It's Ungrim's dead. So no end times happening? No, this is the same universe in which the end times take place, but we're going 300 years back to focus on that time instead. Same universe, the same things are going to happen, probably, but we're focusing on a different point in time. Right? So it's like, if I made a movie about the American Revolutionary War, that's not going to change everything that happened after the American Revolutionary War. I'm just focusing on that war. Are the Sisters of Twilight... All the elf characters are around. Every single elf character is around. And, like, active. If you're an elf fan, or a Lizardman fan, or a... Oh, gosh, Demons fan, all those guys are the same as they've ever been. I thought Sleek Sharpwit assisted in the creation of the Doom Wheel. Ikit Claw is credited with having invented... Well, Sleek Sharpwit's full of crap. Ikit Claw was the one who invented the first Doom Wheel. Are Night Goblins still a thing? Yes. Night Goblins have been a thing for thousands of years. There's no Skarsnik, though. Who's in charge during the vampire counts?
Bring a token trinket to give to Throt. Yes, yes. Good, good. I accept your offering for Mulder Clan.
Manfred von Karstein is technically in charge, but he is believed dead. He's hiding right now. Manfred von Karstein was defeated about 100 years before this. Well, give or take, during the Battle of Helfen. Is Oxiodal still in the warp? No, he's probably out of the realm of chaos by this point, but the route Oxiodal took to get back to Lustria was really long. So he's probably somewhere else in the world. No, Vlad von Karstein's dead by this point. I'm a big Nurgle guy. Anything just about Nurgle? Volver, yeah, there's actually a couple of really big Chaos Champions who will probably be playable or around. So, Azavar Kul, one of his major lieutenants, so like his boss of the Nurgle parts of his army, was a guy named Valnir the Reaper. So Valnir the Reaper will probably make an appearance. What about Vardek Krom? No, Vardek Krom's not around yet. Anything about the Ogres? We know that the Ogres will show up during the Great War Against Chaos because they join both sides. Some of the Ogres side with the Warriors of Chaos, some of them side with the Empire. They fought on both sides in like massive amounts. So the Ogre Kingdoms will probably be present, but we don't really know what's going on with them. How many of the Greenskin characters are around? None of them. Grom the Paunch happens, I think, like 200 years after this. What about the Necromancer guy? Dieter Hellschnitt? Dieter Hellschnitt... Wait, Helman Gorst? No, Helman Gorst is not around. Helman Gorst is not born for another, like, 200 plus years. What of the Moot? The Halflings are around. Any chance Dapon or Cathay makes an appearance? Yeah, there's totally a chance. I have no idea if they will or not. We have very little knowledge about how far this is going to expand. Like, I don't know if this is the map. Like, I don't know if this is, like, all we're getting to start, and then maybe they'll explore beyond that. Or if, like, this is it. I have no idea. You know, it could be that they're like, okay, this is the map, like, we'll fill this in, but that's going to be everybody. Or they could start, maybe, you know, or they could, like, just expand this image as they continue to add factions. We don't know what they're doing yet, as far as, like, the global stuff is concerned. Is Grease's Goldtooth around? No. Is Heinrich Himmler playable? If he is, he's not the Heinrich Himmler you know and love. Heinrich Himmler doesn't, like, get Krell until hundreds of years after this. Have the Dawizar made Black Orcs yet? Yes, they did that 2,000 years ago. Badger, we don't know that yet. We don't know if this is the just exact same timeline as Warhammer Fantasy, but just a hyper-focused portion, or if this is an alternate timeline. We have no idea. Will the army books be updated? No. They're probably going to release new kinds of books. Is the Red Duke around? Yes, the Red Duke is active right now, in this point in the timeline. The Red Duke is hiding in the Forest of Shelons at this point. Is there a chance we could finally get Zotes? There's a chance, sure. Nakai new model? Maybe. What's the Mootland up to? I don't know. I don't think Games Workshop left notes for us about what the halflings were doing during the Great War. I'm sorry to say. Do the dwarves have gunpowder weaponry? Yes. Who's the Attilan emperor at this point? Ludwig. Can we have Lizardmen? We better have Lizardmen. It's not Warhammer Fantasy if you don't have all the Warhammer Fantasy factions. Is Tic-Tac-Toe out and flying? Tic-Tac-Toe is not alive at this point. Tic-Tac-Toe has not been born yet. Or, he hasn't spawned yet. Is Morgur running around? Yes. Morgur, Malagor, Gorus, Warhoof are all running around. Do I think this was the right decision? That remains to be seen. Possibility of Rune Guardians for dwarves? Very unlikely. The last time the dwarves had active rune golems was before the war against the demons. Or, the war against the High Elves. Like, they tried to activate some during the war with the High Elves, and it did not work. Because there was not enough magic to sustain them. What's Krokar up to? I don't know. He's doing something at this point. Krokar's old by this point. Border Princess / Talea, anything interesting happening at this time? Talea is about to get invaded by a shitload of Skaven. Malice Darkblade? I don't know what Malice Darkblade is doing at this point. Or if he even is alive at this point. I'd have to check his books. With Albrecht and Total War, do you think they may shine a light on Bordello? Oh, I think Bordello might get some focus, but Albrecht's not alive yet. Question for the Warhammer world in general. Why did the Elder races like the Elves call the Old World, even though they discovered it after the New World / they live in? Badger? So, Badger, the Elves do not call it the Old World. Whenever you hear something like the Old World or the New World, that's purely from an Empire perspective. Generally, and like, whenever I give dates, that's always from the Imperial calendar perspective. When Games Workshop talks about like the world or the timeline or anything, they always translate it in universe so that it's from the Empire timeline or geography perspective, just to make things easier. But that's not how every single race refers to it. So like the Elves might refer to the Old World as the Old World if they're dealing with like humans, or to make it easier for the reader to understand what they're talking about, but that's not what the Elves themselves would call it. What are these High Elf Enclaves? The High Elf Enclaves are, they're towers where the High Elves basically have a presence to, like, watch over the old world, patrol shipping routes, and just kind of overall, you know, keep an eye on things. So they're like little ports that keep an eye on the situation. Though there is more of them than there used to be. In 8th edition, Tor Martel, well, actually all 4 of these were not around. So it looks like there's going to be a significantly increased High Elf presence in the old world. What's my most favorite moment I'm excited for? Azavar Kul. I want to see Azavar Kul's playable so bad. Azavar Kul is probably one of the most important villains in fantasy's history that we know virtually nothing about. Like, he is super mysterious, despite being, like, the big bad of a very important part of the setting. Badger, no. This is many, many years before Karl Franz is born. This is leading to... So this is going to start right before Magnus the Pious. How much damage did Morgus do on the Forest of Arden? He turned it into a hellscape. Like, it was a disgusting, corrupted forest with horrifying, mutilated creatures and sentient, bloodthirsty trees and all this other bullshit. But by this point, it looks like the Wood Elves have already purified it. Has the Black Plague already happened? Yes. The Black Plague has already happened and ended. Does Azavar Kul do anything other than make Order unite? I mean, he united all the forces of chaos and he blew up the city of Prague. Hail Nagash, Hail Nagash. What's Throg up to? I don't think Throg's alive at this point. Do Lizardmen and Elves have any major interactions at this time? At this time, no. Though the Dark Elves soon after this time start invading Lustria a lot. Is the Outcast Engineer from Vermintide lore friendly? Technically, yes. In a very... It's lore friendly, but like... It's a stretch. But it's there. Anything mentioned with Cathay during this timeline? No, we don't know what Cathay's up to. Have I considered doing a set of videos over all the Everchosen? Maybe at some point. But we only know about like 5 of them. There's been 13 Everchosens, including Archaon, but we only know the names of maybe 5 or 6 of them. Like, we don't even know the names of the rest of them. Is Malice possessed? I don't even think Malice has been born by this point, but if he's around, I do not believe he's been possessed yet. Who's the Dwarf High King at this time? High King Aurikson. He's the High King before Thorgrim. How dead is Croak? Pretty dead. Will Vlad von Karstein be in the game? No, I do not think we'll see Vlad. Unless they resurrect him, but that would be weird. Do I see potential Total War game in this setting? No. I think Total War Warhammer is going to be the only Warhammer Fantasy Total War. I think we might see like Total War 40k or Total War Age of Sigmar, but I do not think we're going to see Total War Warhammer the Old World. How's the old world looking? Interesting. Kind of concerning. Wulfric? I don't think Wulfric's around yet. Was Cool the Everchosen realized the Chaos God? No, that guy, you know, that wasn't even an Everchosen. That was the Iron Reaver. Totally different dude. Not an Everchosen. He was just a powerful Chaos Lord. What can I say about Volans? Volans was the first Supreme Patriarch. We know he was powerful enough that Teclis was kind of amazed by him. We know that he became the first Patriarch of the College of Light. And we know that he was the only human we have any record of who had the ability to understand high magic. Can I go? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. But I will end it on this. Captain Beardy asked a good question. Now this will be the last question. Why am I concerned and what am I excited for? So let me explain my thought process here, and then I'm gonna go so I can get working on tomorrow morning's video. So Um, the things that I'm excited about with this timeline is that I was personally really worried that they were going to put us back really far away, like so far away in the timeline, like the War of Vengeance, or like all these other different wars where like a lot of the factions just didn't even exist yet. I am pleased that they picked this point in the timeline, at to the extent that at least every single Warhammer Fantasy race exists. I am also pleased that they picked a really important time period that we know very little about. Like, I would really like to know a lot more about Magnus the Pious, or Finnebar, the Phoenix King, Azavar Kul, the Everchosen. Like, there's a lot of characters in this time period I would love to have examined a lot more closely, so we could understand them and get to know their stories more. Like King Lewin Orcslayer, pretty interested to know what he's about. I mean, King Lewin Leoncoeur was named after this guy. They're both named King Lewin. So I'm really excited to see all of that information. And I also think that we could get to see some absolutely amazing books from a lore and artwork perspective. If they're actually gonna let us like play through the Great War Against Chaos, like, could you imagine getting to see new detailed artwork about the siege of Prague, or the destruction of Prague, the siege of Kislev, the like the rise of Magnus, the invasion of Ulthuan, where the Dark Elves teamed up with the Warriors of Chaos to fight the High Elves? Like, there's so much crazy shit that happens in this period. However, I do have concerns. I am really worried that Games Workshop is not going to care about the pre-established lore, and that they're going to just look at this and be like, okay, we're starting it like in this ballpark, so it'll kind of be lore accurate, and then they're just gonna like retcon a ton of shit or just change stuff so that it's unrecognizable. I'm really scared about that. Like, I'm really scared that they might just delete characters or completely change how some major things happened. Like, what's about to happen in Bretonnia at this point is an event called there was something called the False Grail that happens at this point, where Musion, which you could see is an actual kingdom at this point, the Duke of Musion, which is Duke Maldred, like, tries to steal the throne of Bretonnia. Like, he has a consort who's a sorceress. He manages to capture and imprison the Fey Enchantress, and then goes through all this elaborate shit to basically declare himself king. And it ends up leading to a small civil war where he gets annihilated, and all the Bretonnians lay siege to Musion, which lasts for like 6 years before he ends up dying to disease. So it's like, oh shit, that could be pretty cool. But yeah, like, I don't mind them adding onto the massive amount of empty space around this timeline, but I am scared about them just like outright changing stuff. I'm also really scared about Forge World being behind a lot of it. I don't like Forge World. I'm gonna be honest. Well, that's not true. I don't like their models. I like their books. Like, I own both Tarmacon and Monsters Arcanum, and they're a ton of fun. But the models are just awful to deal with. So I'm really hoping that the models are not Horus Heresy models. Like, I don't want resin models. I don't give a shit how nice they look. If they're made out of resin, like, please, God, make them plastic. Please let Games Workshop be handling the printing, because Forge World models are ludicrously expensive, and they're a pain in the ass to work with, and they're horrible. So Forge World having their hands in this cookie jar scares me a lot. I worry about that. And of course, I'm just kind of worried about how this will affect the timelines. In any event, that's going to be it for me. I am excited by this. I am looking forward to it. I'm really hoping that that little Wood Elf Enclave like means that this will be after 2246, and that theory ends up being true. That would be like a really, really exciting like point for us here, because I think a lot of people aren't going to catch that one. I would be surprised at the number of Warhammer Fantasy YouTube channels that caught that. But in any event, appreciate you all joining me. I'm going to have a lot of videos coming out soon about this. I'm also going to be doing a lot more AOS stuff coming soon. This year, I want 2021 to be a busy-ass year for the channel, where we're just doing tons of videos and tons of content. So I hope, you know, we can pull that off and it's exciting for everyone. So I appreciate y'all joining me. I'm going to now focus on eating my food and finishing dinner, and then I'm going to go work on videos and stuff. So I hope you all have a lovely evening, and if you're late, if you showed up late and you're like, oh shit, I missed stuff, you can just watch the VOD. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Stay safe, and yeah, I'll see you guys